Alright, let's talk very shortly about Skorpyron Mythic and a couple of things that I noticed while we were doing this boss fight that might help you kill it faster if you're doing this boss soon. I'm just stopping the video for a sec. Right, so basically, I just wanna go quickly over what were the things that we noticed while progressing this fight that isn't really mentioned in the guides very much, or it's very obscurely mentioned in between other things, but not really shown as a big important thing. And it's also from logs that I've seen one of the main reasons why people are wiping in the boss, right? Now, for those of you who've done it, you know that the start of the fight is pretty much the hardest part, and then if you manage to get through the first stun phase, it's kinda easy from there on out. So don't be alarmed if you have issues at the beginning, it's completely normal. And once you pass that, uh, 85% marker more or less, it should be smooth sailing really from there on out to a kill, as long as you manage to keep few things in mind, which I will go through very, very quickly. Alright? Now, first thing that you can notice is at the start of the fight, and it's very important, is how you face the boss, because one thing that is really important is that he always drops crystals right beside his butt. No matter what is happening, depending on how your tanks face him is where the crystals will spawn, right? So ultimately at the beginning the super critical point is for your tanks to face him directly away from the raid, so all the blue crystals at the beginning spawn in your raid group more or less. Okay? As soon as you have a couple of blue crystals, but before the red mode has started, you face him away in order to get the new crystal spawns of the red mode to spawn right behind him, but away from the existing blue crystals, because you want to move as little as possible as the range group to get maximize your DPS. And also to have it easier later when the shockwave is going to happen, because when the shockwave happens, all the red crystals are going to explode, so you want to have them on different side of the room to where the raid group is. Shockwave is about to happen, you have to make sure that everyone, including the tanks, hides behind the crystals, but if you place them like this, you will barely have to move at all. Now, we opted to tank the ads next to the boss at all times, even when the crystals were up, the red ones, and that also meant that we dropped some green pools near the blue crystals when we were hiding behind them. However, this is very easily out-healable as long as, that the time between the two actions is not too long. So basically the tanks should be moving in behind the crystals at the very last second. From here on out, as soon as you reach the first green phase, the fight gets fairly easy and there are no more surprises until the end of the fight. Just have to keep on top of the scorpions, pop heroism on the first stun phase, and get him as low as possible during the first stun phase. From here on out, the difficulty depends very heavily on how much your healers and DPS and raiders fail on shockwaves. As long as you keep hiding behind the crystals on every shockwave with all the raid group and no one gets knocked back into the ads, there really isn't anything else happening until the end of the fight that would be even remotely dangerous. Now, the damage on the tanks is fairly high at all times when the ads are up, so just have to make sure that you heal them, dodge the focus blasts, and try to make sure that before every time he goes back into the blue mode, you have people topped up or as high, on high health as possible, because when he goes into the blue mode, he breaks all the crystals and you know deals huge amount of damage to the raid group. It's probably the only time when the damage ramps up again to the point where it's actually deadly. Aside from that, it's mostly just tank damage and minor raid healing. Even when we have high green stacks, it's basically still not very dangerous overall. Sometimes you might find yourself in a conundrum like we did right now at this moment, that we had shit under us just as the shockwave was about to happen. At that case, you want to save some cooldowns, and the tank that is basically hiding should just try to make sure that they don't bring the ads to the raid group that quickly or that close to the green crystal if there is a way to do so. Now you will see we will soon switch back to the blue mode, or well, the boss will, right after the focus blast, and you will see that there's a very high raid damage hit there that you just have to be ready for. As long as everyone's at about 75-80% health, it's actually survivable, but with random damage that comes otherwise and combination of the phases, it can get very tricky. So it's really important just every time before he goes back into the blue phase, top everyone up. And that pretty much covers all the fight, right? So you can watch to the end now and you will see Um, Pay attention to the shockwaves, how we were hiding. Pay attention to the blue modes, or well, the phase switches, where the damage is high. And as long as you think about what was said earlier, you should be more or less killing this boss within a few tries. It's not very difficult as long as you have base DPS. If you killed Gul'dan and Elisand, you can do this on Mythic, no problem whatsoever. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have good luck in your Mythic tries and that you get the bosses down as soon as possible. I will do the same thing for the other bosses if I basically notice anything that was a real problem for our raid group, and hopefully it will help someone to point out some issues that you might have to tackle before the raid group, before the raid starts, and you know, have less wipes because of these little tips and tricks here and there. The point of these videos is not to replace the guides in any way, it's just to add on top of them for the little things that they might not point out quite as clearly, since that's one of the things that I find the most lacking about them, that they don't go into small little details that make all the difference, because either they might seem completely obvious, or they just seem unnecessary to mention, like the boss positioning and how the specific mechanic of crystal dropping in this particular case works. And while it's not a very difficult boss, it still might save a guild couple of tries if they do it correctly, especially if their skill levels are not as high as the players who usually make the guide, since usually they are the ones first reaching the bosses and have much higher skill cap than the rest of us. Thank you very much, and see you next time.